two major events this week. You know about the one on Friday, the potential partial government shutdown, the shutdown of Homeland Security. That's when DHS runs out of money again. Just like it was going to a week ago, there was a 2-week continuing resolution to buy time to negotiate new restrictions around ICE. Those requests that Democrats have made have landed with a thud, and it looks like there may be no agreement before Friday. So we either get another continuing resolution or DHS shuts down. The one that you might not know about is that we are only 1 day away, counting down 1 day to the return of Bloomberg's Kayleigh Lines at this desk. Yes, 6 months later. And we have missed her greatly. I can't wait to sit here tomorrow with Kayleigh and tell the story from Washington as we do every day. Not only on this program, but the late edition of Balance of Power, which starts at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow's a big day in the nation's capital. Kayleigh's back. As we assembled our political panel for their take on both, I'm pretty sure I know how they feel about Kayleigh. But getting our heads around what's going to happen this week on Capitol Hill could take some work. Even the people we trust the most with the shiniest and clearest crystal balls are all saying, this looks weird this time. Talked to Nathan Dean at Bloomberg Intelligence. They're not running odds on this. And it's very difficult to see the way forward here. We'll see if Bloomberg Politics contributors Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano think otherwise. Jeannie is our Democratic analyst and democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center. Rick is our Republican strategist and partner at Stone Court Capital. Rick, does DHS shut down Friday night?
You know, the rule I always use is who wants a shutdown, right? Does the majority want to shut down? Republicans? And if so, that's highly likely. If the Democrats want to shut down, but in this case, both parties seem to want to shut down. And so my sense is you might have a shutdown at just DHS and only some agencies within DHS. It's kind of like a drive-by shooting for TSA agents, right? I mean, like, they haven't done anything wrong, and they're showing up for work when they weren't getting paid for 45 days during the last shutdown. Yeah. But they're the only ones likely to really be impacted along the sidelines. So at the end of the day, I mean, Democrats, you know, they're making a calculation that people blame Republicans for shutdowns, and they'd be more right than wrong over the years. But Republicans have an attitude that the only way to negotiate anything on ICE reforms is going to be to play hardball. And so my guess is this is going to be a messier one than usual.
Boy, that's not good. Jeannie, the TSA just gets no respect, right? It's already got to be one of the hardest jobs to stand there and deal with all of us lined up and being jerks at the airport. Now you go without pay for the longest government shutdown in American history, and you're one of the only ones on the block this time around. Is there any way that Democrats can carve this up? I guess it doesn't matter because ICE is funded through the big, beautiful bill. So what's the point of this exercise?
I know, Joe, we're going to have to start like a thank the TSA agents as you go through because they
You're
have
right.
the toughest job. And by the way, I can't wait to see Kayleigh sitting there right next to you, Joe, where she should be. So it's going to be fun. The only bright spot in D.C. this week. You know, I was listening very carefully to Hakeem Jeffries over the weekend, and I agree with Rick. They're on both sides, and just you go to Hakeem Jeffries, and he said very, very clearly, we put out our demands. There are no negotiations going on at this point. This was yesterday. Donald Trump, who would have to be involved to get this over the line, doesn't seem to be involved. And he said it is going to be Republicans who have decided that they want to shut down this department because they are unwilling to require ICE agents to follow the rules of the Fourth Amendment and the rules that all other security agencies and police forces in the country follow. And so Democrats feel very strongly that it is going to be Republicans shutting down, as Rick said. And I would suspect on the other side, as we keep hearing, they are not in a mood to negotiate on most of these 10 points. So another week, another shutdown potentially, Joe Matthew, coming on Friday.
Jeez. I mean, is there any way that the White House can help by redirecting funds? Or I don't know if there's any kind of maybe there's a year-long CR for DHS. Rick, is there any way to do this where Democrats feel like they made a point, but we don't defund the TSA and FEMA and Coast Guard the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think that like all of these, you get to this point of, diminishing returns, right? And you saw that just take a long time in the last shutdown. And so how long is this going to be an issue? And how much does the public really understand about it? I mean, the advantage the Democrats have is because, these issues with Minneapolis were on the front page of every newspaper for a week. Or more, and it's been hurting the administration. The president had to send, his representative, his border czar Homan there to clean things up. I mean, it was a total mess for Republicans. Now, we're spending our time talking about Bad Bunny. I mean, all of a sudden, Minneapolis isn't on the front page of every newspaper in America, and yet the Democrats continue to believe that, that the public outrage related to it and other things happening in their own communities of LA and Chicago and other places around the country is enough to empower them to hold this funding up. And Republicans are kind of making a gamble that the skies are clearing and they're not going to get punished by this. Well, all of this goes into the cauldron of 2026 midterm elections. And I must admit, I mean, unless Republicans are talking about the economy, they're off message and they need to get back on it. So if I were them, I'd be in the group saying, let's cut a deal, let's get this over with, and let's start talking about affordability.
Really interesting, Jeannie. We could argue, by the way, that we would not be talking about Bad Bunny if it were not for the ICE situation. Remembering the stand that he made at the Grammys, that was a big moment here. A lot of folks thought he might go there last night, but he did not. When you back away from this debate on DHS funding and consider the politics surrounding the halftime show in the Super Bowl, the angry post that President Trump made after watching it, how does that inform outcomes here in Washington?
It's such an important question because so much of what has happened in this debate has been driven by what's happening on the ground quite unexpectedly. So, 2 weeks prior to when the government was going to shut down, or say a week prior, we all thought the government was going to be funded and everybody in Washington would go home and work on the midterm. And then the horrific killings of the two residents of Minneapolis in terms of Pretti and Good occurred and changed the entire conversation. So the Super Bowl is another example of that. The Grammys are another example of that. Certainly when Bad Bunny handed his Grammy Award over to a child that looked like, but was not, the 5-year-old boy from Minneapolis who had been picked up by ICE, that created another in a long line of memories for people as to what has been driving so much of the concern here. And I think as you look at the Democrats' 10 demands, what you see is this has a lot less to do with immigration and border policy and a lot more to do with federalized troops and forces on the ground who are violating basic American rights in the Fourth Amendment in particular. And that is something that people left, right, and center believe is an overreach. And so it's part and parcel of a story that Democrats want to tell about corruption, costs, and chaos on the ground that they think is going to help them with 26. And if the president doesn't roll back some of what he keeps putting online, including the video last week about President Obama and the First Lady, that just sort of feeds this entire machine. So I think these events keep feeding what is going to be an impasse here over DHS funding.